Hello, my name is Aku and I'm a Student Recruitment and Admissions Manager for the College of Medicine and Health at the University of Exeter. I'm going to be speaking to you today about applying to medical school. Now, the decision on whether to embark on a career in medicine isn't one to be taken lightly, as you know. Higher education courses in medicine take quite considerably longer to complete than your typical 3 or 4 year undergraduate programme. And also, if you do add some postgraduate study to that, you can find that you're often studying for 10 to 15 years or even more before you're then a fully fledged doctor. Now, your typical Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery course can take a minimum of 5 years to complete. 3 of those years are often heavily focused on vocational work in hospitals and medical centres. Now, as you know, medicine is a very competitive programme. Within the UK, out of around 130 universities, 37 of those are medical schools. It is competitive, and it is quite right that you do your research to see which will be the most suitable programme for you. Now, in this talk, we will cover why medicine, selecting a medical school, what they are looking for, entrance tests, and the application process. Now, in terms of selecting a medical school, this is a question that you will be asked during the interview process if you're invited to attend. It is important to consider your reasoning for wanting to embark upon a career in this field, as it is often busy, it can be stress-inducing, it requires commitment to lifelong learning, and often has very long working hours. You may find you will need to look beyond the desire to help others or follow in the footsteps of family members. Now, you might want to enter medicine because you find the human body fascinating, or you have a deep interest in science, or there are specific fields of medicine that you have a passion for want to be part of. And it's important that these are your reasons, that you're able to verbalise those and be clear and concise when doing so. Other areas to consider when selecting a medical school are the location, the reputation, and the ease of access to airports or major cities for where that medical school is located, and also whether you would like a rural or a city life. For a medical school such as Exeter, we are in Devon, and that's around 3 or 4 hours away from London, which is of course our capital city. You can certainly travel to neighbouring cities such as Bristol or even Bath, and you can travel to numerous areas from there, and you can get flights all around the world. But if that's something of particular focus to you, you should certainly look at the region that the medical school is located in. The size and cohort and the type of teaching and learning practices should also be something that you do some research into. Now, at Exeter, we have a large cohort of 218 students per year. However, we are limited in the number of international students we're able to recruit, being able to only offer 10 per year. So it's certainly important that you consider this when researching which medical schools to apply to. Now, traditional or integrated programmes, these are the traditional medical schools often based in lecture theatres for the first 3 years before a student can then enter a clinical environment. For a fully integrated programme such as ours at Exeter, we allow our students to go into clinical environments within the first few weeks of study. So when you arrive in September, you do get to go into a clinical area within those first few weeks. For programmes like ours, we encourage putting into practice what you learn as you learn it. So our educators often encourage a hands-on approach, and so clinical access starts incredibly early. And then it actually increases as the years go by, and as that increases, your time in the classroom somewhat decreases. Other areas to consider are the types of social life that will be available to you. You'll be coming to university to study, but it's important to also gain life experience. Consider what societies there are for you to join. These are the doors that open you up to meeting a variety of people and gain exposure to different communities. Student support is also a factor to research. As you may be away from home, look into those who'll be there for you both academically and personally. A strong support system will be key to helping you complete your studies. What are they looking for? This is a question that we are asked quite often, and it will certainly vary from school to school. As a whole, personal qualities are as important as academic ability. Now, many medical schools now use problem-based learning or small group learning as their teaching method. These teaching styles will require you to be an active team member, one who contributes during group discussion, but one who can also listen and be open to being educated by others. Additionally, with a teaching style such as that, you'll need to be committed to your studies, as self-directed learning may be required of you. Now, self-directed learning will require you to go and do your own independent research and allocated a significant number of hours to private study. If that's something that you're interested in, then you should certainly look at those areas of teaching. Alternatively, traditional teaching methods still do take place, and those are based in lecture theatres, where you have an academic who provides you with the information, and you can then research it afterwards, ready to prepare yourself for examinations. Entrance tests are also areas in which you will need to do a little bit of research, as these vary from medical school to medical school. Most are now looking for students to undertake the UCAT, which is the University Clinical Aptitude Test. Now, this is a non-science-based aptitude test, and it seeks to measure your critical thinking, your problem-solving skills, your empathy, and your learning techniques. You may find that it's a different way of being tested to that which you've been exposed to thus far. We certainly recommend that you have a look at the UCAT website to participate in past papers and do some practice tests to prepare yourself for undertaking the test when you come to apply. Now, within the UCAT itself, in terms of the examination, there are certain sections that are timed, and unfortunately they do place a timer on the screen, and you can see your time ebbing away whilst you're answering questions. So we strongly recommend that you have a go, do some practice tests, speak to others on forums and see how they prepared themselves for the examination, as it really will help you and get you ready for when it comes to applying yourself. Another entrance exam is the BMAT, and that's the Biomedical Admissions Test. This one is academically focused, and it is something that you can study for quite considerably ahead of time, as it will test science and applied maths knowledge. Now, those aren't the only tests that you can do. If you decide that you want to wait some years prior to applying, then you can also undertake the Graduate Medical School Admissions Test, alternatively known as the GAMSAT. Now, this test is for anyone post-high school qualification of more than 2 years. Perhaps you've gone away to undertake a degree elsewhere and you've completed 3 years of study, or perhaps you don't get into medicine first time and you want to come back a few years later. That's absolutely fine, and if that does happen to you, you can undertake the GAMSAT test and still be considered for entry onto one of the medical programmes. The GAMSAT itself is very different to the UCAT and BMAT in that it's a 5-hour examination, and it will test your reasoning in humanities and social sciences, as well as your physics and biology knowledge. Anyone who is successful in that test will often be invited to attend an interview. There will be threshold scores that you need to meet in those areas, but those will be set in each year of application. So it's important to review as many websites as possible for the universities you're interested in attending to see what those threshold scores are before you apply. Now, in terms of the application and selection process, as a standard, all applications need to be submitted via UCAS by the 15th of October in the year prior to entry. You will find that the medical application process is a lot shorter than those, let's say, they're applying for a humanities programme. So you will need to be sure and you need to be ready by September in order to submit your application so that you don't miss the 15th of October deadline. Now, on the UCAS application itself, what we are looking for are your academic qualifications. So we're looking for your A-levels or your International Baccalaureate qualifications, as well as what you achieved at GCSE or equivalent level. We also want to see from you which entrance test you've undertaken, whether that be the UCAT, the GAMSAT or the BMAT. Some medical schools will also look for work experience on your application form. Now, work experience requires the individual to go into perhaps a clinical setting or a healthcare professional setting and undertake some shadowing of those healthcare professionals. Shadowing can be in a hospital for, let's say, a period of 2 weeks, where you've gone around certain wards with a doctor or a nurse to see what work they typically undertake on a day-to-day basis. At the University of Exeter, we do not outline work experience as part of our entry requirements, as we do understand that it's quite difficult to obtain that kind of experience in a healthcare setting unless you already know somebody in that field. For us, if you've been able to have a part-time job, or you've been doing charity work or volunteering, anything that exposes you to your community and liaising with others outside of perhaps school or college, those skills will help you develop your own interpersonal skills and your communication skills, and will really set you apart when it comes to an interview. But if you don't have work experience, you shouldn't feel that that will disadvantage you straight away. It may not. Not every medical school will ask for work experience. As I say, at the University of Exeter, it is not part of our entry requirements. We will also ask for you to complete a personal statement, and this one statement will be used across all the applications that you put forward for the medical schools that you're interested in applying to. Your personal statement should outline reasons as to why you want to study medicine and the qualities you feel you have that would make you a good medical student or a medical professional in the future. It's important that if you do happen to speak about work experience on your statement, that you not only talk about what you did, but discuss what benefit it gave to you, what insight into healthcare it provided you with, and perhaps it changed your mind on what you wanted to do, or perhaps it reinforced it. It's good for you to be able to write that down so that your assessors can know a little bit more about you and your experiences. Now, academically, the minimum across the board is typically 3 A's, and that's for an A-level candidate, and that's across the 3 subjects that you undertake. Usually, the medical school will ask for you to undertake chemistry and biology, and then a third subject can be that of your own choosing. Now, as a standard, the majority of medical schools do not look at general studies as a qualification. We do accept critical thinking, but be aware that general studies is not likely to be accepted anywhere. So if you're an A-level student, ensure that your profile includes chemistry and biology, and then your third subject can be whatever of your own choosing. Most medical schools do accept a research student. So let's say perhaps you've applied and unfortunately you've been unsuccessful in that application cycle and you want to try again the following year. The typical standard is that it's absolutely fine for you to do so, and we would certainly welcome those applications through. At Exeter, we do not have a level at which you needed to meet at your first attempt, but some medical schools may say that you need to have achieved an A and 2 Bs at your first attempt before they will consider you again. It's very useful to have a look at each medical school's policy on their websites to see where they stand in relation to resits. You will also need to provide English language qualifications and maths qualification. Typically with English language, most medical schools will ask for an IELTS qualification, and it's important to have a look at their websites to see what the minimum thresholds are. For those of you undertaking the International Baccalaureate, the usual standard is 36 points overall, and often that will include 2 higher level subjects, which should include chemistry and biology, usually to a minimum of a grade 6. Minimum levels in standard science and maths will also be accepted, but typically the IB subject range can be anything of your liking. You just have to ensure that you've got higher level biology and chemistry. The 3 theory of knowledge points are also taken into consideration. Now, if you are invited to attend an interview, those will often take place from December in the year of application through to March in the year of entry. It is important that if you know you're not going to be available in that time period, that you outline that on your application form. Medical schools will then do their very best to ensure they don't schedule you to attend an interview on those dates, but do be aware that it may not always be possible to navigate that, and so you may need to attend an interview at a time which may be a little bit inconvenient for you. Interviews will take the form of different styles, so there are traditional and there are multiple mini interviews. A traditional interview is somewhat of a panel interview. Occasionally you will meet 2 to 3 people who may present themselves to you behind a desk. They may have your application in front of them and they will ask you questions regarding your application. So they will have fully read your personal statement and they would ask you to verbalise certain areas of that statement. So it's always very useful to be well informed about what you have written. Multiple mini interviews are slightly different in that they are a series of short stations. Your time in those stations will vary from school to school. The minimum is often 2 minutes and the higher end is sometimes 10 minutes per station. At Exeter, we undertake multiple mini interviews, and at present we offer 5 stations which are 5 minutes in length. So you will go into a station, a panellist will ask you a series of questions, and when your 5 minutes is completed, you'll then move into another station to meet another panellist and undertake another series of questions. With multiple mini interviews, these are often very much about personal qualities, so they're not academically focused. These interviews will look at your communication skills, your teamwork and your decision-making skills. So it's very useful to be aware ahead of time what kinds of examples you may want to put forward about times in which you've worked in a team, or times in which you've shown compassion to others, or times in which you've shown excellent decision-making skills. We also may want to hear from you about a time when things haven't necessarily gone to plan and how you've worked through that, things that you've learned from those experiences. Again, it's useful to have a look online ahead of time to see what style of interview will be taking place. And of course, in this current climate, some interviews may take place online, but you will be notified ahead of time so that you can prepare yourself fully before the interview takes place. Selection processes at medical schools will vary, much like the academic profile that each one is looking for. At Exeter, we employ a scoring system. We will weight an academic performance at 75% and the UCAT performance will be at 25%. And anyone who meets the scores and thresholds that we set will then be invited to attend an interview. Majority of medical schools will focus at that point on your academic ability, whether that's the grades you have achieved or the grades that you are predicted to achieve. There are often a limited number of interview spaces available, and so this is where the competitive nature of medicine can take place. Sadly, we can't interview all of you, but hopefully you will all have an interview at an institution that you have selected to apply to. Now, if you're made an offer following a successful interview, these offers will refer to both academic and non-academic conditions. The non-academic conditions may well refer to you providing us with criminal conviction clearance, as well as occupational health clearance. These are things we will work through with you at the point of offer, but it's useful to know ahead of time that these are areas you will be questioned upon if you are made an offer. We do hope that if you do have concerns or if you have any queries, that you make sure you contact whichever medical school it is that you're interested in attending. We have vast admissions teams who are on hand to be able to answer questions for you. There is no question that is tricky or inconvenient. We are here to be your support system. So if you do have any questions, please do contact us. We'll certainly like to help you as best we can. We look forward to receiving your future application and helping you embark upon your first steps into the medical profession. Thank you.